Starting now.
All right, guys, let me tell you. I know I said 6 and it's almost 6:25, but that's just the way that sometimes these techie things go. We've had all sorts of fun this evening trying to get this bad boy rolling, but I can tell you that I am very excited to introduce you to our guest tonight on Leave It on the Line. Now, this is something, it's one of my favorite shows that we do because we get to take a moment and listen to the stories of people coming up in the industry that have made it and what they've learned so they can pass on some of that information. And, I'm a huge fan of everybody in this industry and how hard it is because, this industry is just full of the hard knocks. No one's cutting anyone a break. And if we don't take care of each other, who will? I'm your host, Chef Jojo Doyle, founder and creator of ECO, Extreme Culinary Outfitters. And without further ado, let's just take a look. Tonight's guest is J.Chefé. Chef, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, fantastic. I will say that part of the technical difficulty was because of me. I was trying to get this Zoom thing to work, and usually I do all the time. For whatever reason, if anybody has a Zoom app, sometimes they're a little tricky, so I apologize for the delay.
Hey, look, I was freaking out because I couldn't get the screen completely focused, 30 minutes ago. So we all have. And then yesterday, my video stopped right at the last 4 minutes. I was trying to wrap everything up. So there's guests, I was trying to make this poignant point and it all just went away. And I forgot to hit record, so I can't upload. And I'm going to tell you what, it was my favorite episode of Shift Drink in a long time, and it's gone. Yeah. So you don't have to apologize. You're in good company.
Okay, we'll make sure that this one stays in the history books.
Yes, sir. Both buttons today. We're streaming on Facebook and we're on YouTube. So, man, I'm super excited that we finally got it to work. Without really going into it, I have to tell everybody that I came across J.Chefé on Instagram. He was interviewing a friend of ours, a good chef friend that has done a lot for us, Jet Tila, and you did such a phenomenal job. I hearing the way you interacted with him, and some of your stories were just really cool. And I was like, you know what, we need to sit down and do a little Leave It on the Line so we get to know you a little bit deeper. Now, Chef, where are you located?
I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I'm originally from Tallahassee, so I know Atlanta very well. Very well.
Okay.
One of my dearest friends in my whole life still lives in Atlanta. I got some guys outside of Atlanta, but Ronald's in the heart. I think he might just be outside, but last time I was in Atlanta, we had an amazing time.
Yes. Atlanta's a beautiful city. It's so much opportunity here. It's just busy. Everybody and their mother is just about either wants to visit, or has moved here. So, and the last part, moved here, has been the big thing. It's getting kind of overpopulated, but it's a good city.
Yeah, the traffic has always been, people say LA's got traffic. Miami definitely had traffic when I lived down there, but Atlanta, it's got some traffic too.
Atlanta has everybody beat. Anybody who's like, oh yeah, LA traffic. Miami. Now, Miami can be a little busy because they're going over, like if you're in Fort Lauderdale and you're trying to get over to that bridge, get over to Miami, everybody's on this bridge. Why they made one bridge or a couple of bridges to get to Miami is beyond me. But that just causes a major traffic jam. They haven't kept up with that. But Georgia originally, I'm originally from Jersey. And when I moved here, I've seen how the highways were. I remember when we had a toll booth here, and it reminded me a little bit of back home, but it was like in the suburbs. And, they have rebuilt so many highways, and they're still doing it, and they're still expanding. So, it's incredible.
Yeah, when I remember when we were living in Kentucky, we'd drive down and go through, and we'd stop. Sometimes we stopped once. I think we stopped at the Varsity, for the kids. I wanted to do that when I was growing up, but my dad was like,
I used to run up the street from the Varsity.
Yeah, like my dad would never stop We're not. We're not. He would only stop when we got to the destination kind of guy. But we stopped.
Yeah,
The kids had a great time. Um, but
yeah.
you can get
I wish they had a
old.
White Castles here.
Oh, they don't have a White Castle. What do you got? Crystal though.
No,
Don't is Crystal
yeah, it's
still
not the
around?
same.
Not
Oh
the
no,
same.
yeah, I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody. I grew up on White Castles. White Castles was the originator, and then Crystals. I forgot how the partnership worked, but Crystals White Castles made Crystals only be able to be in certain states.
In the South, I think, like the
But they
Southeast
would
kind of
never,
thing.
yeah, they
Because
would never be in the states.
I grew up on Crystals because being from Tallahassee, there was a Crystals there. Now, like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite questions to ask chefs.
Okay.
Do you like fast food? Do you find it
Um,
satisfying?
yeah, I'm really a mom and pop establishment type of guy. Um, they have a place here called Baldino's Jersey Giant Jersey Subs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's here in Atlanta. And so I go there. They have another place called Rubens, and he's from New York. Uh, so I go there. But as far as fast food, nah, I'm not a fast food restaurant person. I used to be, as a kid. You always go
Oh,
to these different places, and if I'm on a road trip or something and I gotta eat something for breakfast, I may go over to McDonald's, but most of the time I don't. You know,
yeah,
um,
I hear you, but
yeah.
I
But
don't.
White Castle reigns supreme for me. Like in our
Well,
family,
no, it's we started the conversation 3 minutes in. You talking about White Castle? I'm like, okay, this guy's after my heart because
yeah,
I don't eat as much fast food as I used to, but
yeah,
man, boy,
yeah.
you name. I would sit in the line at McDonald's while I was eating Taco Bell. I there's something
Yeah.
and like people are like, I mean, I'm a fast food. I like it. We have In and out here, which is a good burger.
Oh,
Um,
I like In and Out. I've been to California plenty of times and I love it. I love their shakes too. They make good shakes. But I'll tell you one thing. I went to well, one going back to White Castles because I just have to say something about White Castles real fast. They should pay me. So
hashtag sponsored.
my yeah, how about that? My uncle he lives in Orlando, right? So we having this conversation. He's like, listen, they about to open up the world's biggest White Castles in Orlando. And I said, what? He said, so listen, when you come, I don't care what you got going on. You better bring your behind to Florida because we're about to go there. We're going to be at the first people to get there to the door. And we're going to stay there for lunch and we're going to chill, let everything just kind of digest. And we're going to eat dinner. And we're going to tell them ahead of time in line. I'm like, yes, like this is going to go down. I
Did you
love
do
I love
it?
White Castles back. I would drive. Yeah, I mean, I love Florida anyway, so it's only 6 hours away from here. I get up at like say 5 o'clock. I'm there by 11. We're there by like 12. It's on.
It's on now. Did you do this or is this is what's happening? This is gonna
So this
happen.
is what's happening. So
Oh,
hopefully they open during the fall and but with the pandemic, you never know.
I'd drive. I would drive. I would do it. Like
Well, I mean, I still tell my uncle he's my favorite uncle, so it's one of those things.
no,
But
dude,
yeah,
that's gonna be fun. In White Castle, we're totally on a tangent on White Castle. I love this. In Louisville, the White Castle would do table service on Valentine's Day, so you could
oh
go
wow,
inside White Castles and they would have a tablecloth and you would dine in. I think it's across the nation that they do it in their White Castles.
wow,
They have service, table service, so you have a server.
table service.
Yeah,
Okay,
I might be
okay,
missing. My kids talked about it years ago about how awesome that
yeah.
was. They did like a little video on it. So I'm a
Wow,
fan. We used to get because you can get 6 packs and 12 packs of them and all this different stuff, right?
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
always better
Certain
early
terms.
in the morning, two
Oh,
o'clock. You get about 8 of them.
yeah,
You're just set. Now,
yeah, yeah.
what made you?
Whataburger's pretty good too.
Oh, stop it right now. What? You said it. You said because look, Whataburger's breakfast. Now they have a bacon cheeseburger, but their breakfast for me was an all-time great because they had this potato taquita, and it was like a burrito with the hash brown in it with eggs, and then you could get it with cheese and
Oh
get a
wow,
side of the gravy because they had
yeah,
biscuits and gravy, and you could dip
yeah,
that in the gravy.
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I miss Whataburger. I
I've
like.
only had them. I've only had them twice, and that's recently. That was October of this year. Oh no, excuse me, September of this year. And the only reason I had it was because, well, excuse me, of last year. The only reason I had it was because I was visiting my cousin in Dallas, Fort Worth area, him and his fiance, they were having a baby shower, and they, we were hungry prior to the days of the baby shower. They said, "Oh, we need to go to Whataburger," and we went over there, man, and I just fell in love, man. They're really good.
Yeah, yeah. Like
I mean,
also
for a fast food
Whataburger,
restaurant, like they're,
like you just,
I
I
mean,
just want you to say that like a few minutes ago, he's like, "No, I don't eat that much. I don't eat that much food." But then you brought up the
well,
Whataburger.
I know. You probably can see a feed that I can't see, so people are like, "This guy is crazy." But what I will say is that I say Whataburger because I've only had it one. I've had it twice, but in the same weekend.
Oh,
So it just came to my brain because I had never had it before, but
it
whatever
was.
reason, in that same weekend, I had to cook for his baby shower, and so you know how it is when you're cooking for others, you never get to eat. So I felt like I was working all over again. So I cooked for everybody. Everybody ate, and then at the end of it, the baby shower's over, and I'm like, I'm hungry now. So then, we stopped by Whataburger, and I was like, again, we'll do it again, and it was like a sweet and tasty or sweet and something burger, and it was pretty good.
They I miss being able to like stop at a Whataburger for sure because they had good breakfast. Their burgers were always good. White Castle's good. You know, had a thing called Hardee's over there that had good chicken and biscuit breakfast sandwiches. But they have Carl's Jr., which is like it's kind of like White Castle and Crystal, where they split.
They branch.
Yeah, they branch off. Now, when you were in Jersey, did you like? That's where you grew up. When did you leave for Atlanta?
Ooh. I left to Atlanta in my late or maybe early teens, like 17.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Now, was it a
16,
family
17,
move, or did you set out by yourself?
Well, it's crazy. It was a family move. I had gotten in touch with my father, and I basically wanted to have a relationship with my father. So he was here, so we made it happen.
So your mother and you moved back to Atlanta to be closer to your dad that you did not know.
No. So
No.
yes on the did not know. No to my mother moving. Only me.
You moved to stay with your dad.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
was that
like
culture shock though? Oh my god. Like look, what year is this when you moved?
uh I don't know. It was like early 2000s, something like that.
Okay, so 20 years ago.
Yeah, because I graduated high school in 2003, so I'm 35. So yeah, it was some
Oh, well,
years ago.
see, here's the thing: is I forget how old I am a lot of times. So when I talk to young gentlemen like yourself, I think I'm your age, but really, since I graduated high school in '92, I just forgot how old I was right there. But in 2000 that's only that's 20 years ago. So you went down.
Yeah.
That had to be you're 17 years old, growing up in Jersey, moving to Atlanta. Culture shock or no?
um, Major culture shock because when I came here, most people just were, as far as my accent was concerned, um, the things that I did, people, kids that are in the city, they grow up a lot faster. I saw a lot of things growing up, and so seeing those things and then coming to the South, I'm not saying that the people in the South were behind in the things that they saw. I'm just saying that I probably saw a little bit more at that time that maybe I probably shouldn't have seen. And so my thing was I always wanted to hang around with the people who were older than me because it was just like the people who were my age were just, to me it was a waste of time. Um,
Yeah.
because we had grew up so fast in Jersey. They got to a point where I had to walk to school by myself. Um, and it was at a young age because if you got a single mother and she's working two jobs to make sure she takes care of you, the one thing she had to say to me was, "Listen, Justin, this is what I need to do. Need you to do. I need you to. This is the path you need to take to go home." And she had this thing packed down, like she had it down, where it was like, "Look, this is what you do, and as soon as this before cell phones, as soon as you get home, you better call me." And if I didn't call my mother as soon as I got home, woo, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I was late one time going to the corner store, and the corner store had all kind of goodies. You get there, you have your quarter waters, the little plastic waters with
Now,
the foil on top.
the foil on top that looked like a jug.
Yeah. We had the ices and all the different things. That's why I don't eat too much fast food now because when you're younger, you eat all of that stuff. It's like you have a taste bud for that.
Yes.
Now I have a taste bud for like cuisine, like really fine cuisine. And every once in a while, I may have a taste bud for fast food. But yeah, if I didn't get home and she called and she knew how long it took for me to get home. My mother's a Jersey mom. She's not, I don't know how people are nowadays. Like my mother had me clean the baseboards, moving the stove out of place to clean the inside and the outside of the stove. I mean, it was bottom cleaning when I was younger. It was a task when I got home. So she made sure that
She kept
she
you
knew,
busy.
yeah, she knew if I got home on time because she knew how long it took me to do my homework. She knew how long it took me to clean. She didn't play any games, and I owe her a lot for that.
I think that we walked home a little bit, but then we moved. We lived in an apartment complex a long time, and then I think when I was like 12 or 13, we finally had enough to buy a house, and we got this house, and it was in the suburbs, and we had to ride the bus. Mm-hmm. But my dad was notorious for chores. He would he'd lock the list down. There'd be a whole list, and he would come home at random times, and if you didn't have them done in a certain time, it was on and popping. You definitely had some issues if you didn't get your stuff done. Now, when did you decide that you wanted to be a chef? Was this something that you knew about early on?
This is a good story now. For anybody who's watching, this is like a really, really good story. I'm going to keep it like abbreviated to a certain degree. Okay, so growing up, in Jersey, my grandmother was a terrific cook. And when I say terrific, like, I know when people say that, they're like, oh, yeah, what does she make? It's like one thing people feel like their grandparents make. If it's soul food, they think, oh, they only made soul food. My grandmother was the exact opposite. She made different things from different ethnicities. She, even though she was not a chef, I always say, I said something to my mother the other day. I said, excuse me, not the other day, a little while ago. I said, Grandma was a chef. She was like, no, she wasn't. I said, yes, she was. Do you see how many people came to her house? The whole neighborhood, everybody knew. Like when my grandmother passed away, the hearse came down Vermont Avenue in Newark, New Jersey, and there was plenty of homes. I never forget that. People just came out. It's almost like they knew when she was coming down the street. And they just, out of respect, even if they couldn't go to the funeral, they were out at their porches. It was like the whole neighborhood. I didn't realize how big of an impact my grandmother had on other people's lives through her food and the love of her food and people until that moment. Wow. So that was one moment that I was like really affected by, and I realized like how much, not only her food but her personality really people just resonated with and they loved. Yeah. Then her husband, which was my grandfather, which really was my step grandfather, but he was my grandfather.
Okay.
He married my grandmother and she had 4 kids, including my mother. And then he had 2 more kids with her. And he had kids of his own, but he wasn't a lazy man. And by the way, he was a chef. And so, growing up, seeing him as a chef and seeing my grandmother as a great cook, it was just a phenomenal thing to see. So I feel like there was little hints here and there that I thought of doing these things, but it wasn't until honestly, it wasn't until years later. I mean, how can I explain it? The only way I can explain it is this. Before I was getting ready to graduate high school, my guidance counselor, she asked me, she said, are you going to college? And I said, I don't think so. And then she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, it's not going to happen for me. And she's like, what do you mean it's not going to happen for you? I said, my father's not going to fill out FAFSA. And it was like, she had this look on her face like, what? Because she met my father before. Here's my father, this handsome guy, this articulate guy, hard worker. There's nothing about him, like from appearance wise, that would say that he didn't want me to go to school. He kind of hyped me up to go to college. He hyped me up to go to prom. He hyped me up to go to prom. I went to 2. The last prom I went with the prom queen. Didn't know she was a prom queen, but she ended up wanting to be a prom queen. And he wanted me to go to homecomings. It's like he wanted me to do the things that maybe he didn't do when he was in high school.
Okay.
When it got serious, he let me go to college tours. But when it got serious and it was time to like give him the paperwork, my father did not want to fill it out. Now he had a job that he was getting paid well, and he said, or at least decent, I should say. And he said what he would do was pay my college with 401k, with his 401k. So I was thinking in my head, like, there's no way that you're going to use your 401k to pay for my college. So I knew that was a lie. I just knew he was just saying that to kind of get me to, like, whatever off, right? So I knew I wasn't going to college and I was going to have to figure it out. So my guidance counselor, I told her that day, I'm like, please don't call my father. Don't call my father. He's gonna say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
no, I know.
she
I
tells
hear
me,
your story.
yeah, she literally tells me I'm not gonna do it, and then she does it. So I get home, my father's like, curse me out, this, that, and the other, and that's a more complex type of situation.
No,
May not
definitely.
be the most entertaining for most people, but that's what. So there was always hard lessons for me to figure out what I was gonna do. And so at the time, I was working at CVS Pharmacy. That was my first job, um, and I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. But I was always cooking. My whole life, I've always been cooking. It's not like a there's I learned from my grandparents, my mother, my aunts. I've always been cooking, and I would cook. He wouldn't be home. I would cook, and then I would go to work. And that was like growing up. It was one of those things that I had to do for myself. So it became a thing that I was accustomed to doing. But so that was a little hint.
Mm-hmm.
She calls him. He says what he says to her. The next day I come in. The girl I was going to prom with, her eyes are watery because she works in a guidance office as administrative assistant like me. Our senior year, the guidance counselor, all the other guidance counselors in the office, eyes are watery because they just had these high hopes for me.
Did you
They
do
thought
really well in school? Were you a good
I
student?
didn't do. I didn't do really. I did. I
I
was
guess
a
I
good
should say
student.
really
I didn't.
well. That shows you how well I
Yeah,
did in school.
yeah. I was a A, B, and C student. I was never like a D and F student.
Oh, okay.
I went to summer school one time, and that was because of math,
Hmm.
and it was because I didn't get it. I didn't get math fully the way I really needed to until I was like out of high school. Until I had to do it, and then I realized how easy it was to me in my mind.
Oh, wow.
Fractions and all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
It became very easy, especially with doing baking and all these different things. It came with the love of things that I love to do, and so you know, basically, she said she talked to my father. Father said what he said. Their eyes were all watery in the whole nine, and then I knew I wasn't going to school. So, I graduated high school, and I had to figure it out. So I had to put myself, unlike some kids, they get the parents helping them all throughout. My father basically didn't care. I mean, I can't say that because I don't know exactly, but it felt like that. And so
Okay.
he didn't really show me what I thought I was gonna see, leaving my mother coming to him. But what he did show me was hard work. And so I may say what I said about him, but one thing I can't say about him is that he was a lazy man. He was a hardworking man. He just maybe not been he may have not been the best father per se,
Mm-hmm.
but I think people have to realize this in life. You have to pick and choose little different things that you can appreciate about a person, and you can be upset about something they did, but what I try to do is I try not to think about the fact that he didn't help me with college and he didn't help me with these. I looked at the fact that he showed me an example of like working hard. So I just say, okay, well, I may not be like my father in so many ways, but this whole hard work thing, I'm gonna do. So years later, um, I get a job. My mentor, the guy who hired me, his name is Chef Rico Cunnington, and it came at a time when I needed a job, like most young people. And I go in there, and he's like, what makes you think that you can, serve tables? It was just serving tables
So
at the
you
time.
started serving before you got in the kitchen,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're like, oh, I can hustle, I can work hard. I'll show you.
yeah, yeah. It was one of those situations where I had already worked for CVS. I had already worked for this company called Strategic Publishing Merchandising. I had already worked for Southeast Atlantic Beverage Merchandising. When you go in the grocery store, you see Coca Cola, you see Pepsi, and then you see the other.
Yes.
Southeast Atlantic Beverage was running like RNC, and
Hey,
Hawaiian.
man, Royal Crown, one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. So they were out was merchandising for them. So that was dealing with beverage. And then I started working for this company called Matador Distributing, where I worked. Basically, this is when Red Bull first came out. We distributed Red Bull. So at 20 years old, I had got a job working for Red Bull, and with among a whole bunch of other employees that were like in their 30s and 40s, and I was like the youngest guy they hired. And so it was just slinging Red Bull, like going to independent convenience stores and gas stations and grocery stores and clubs and selling. And that's like my specialty. So it was like, it was so easy to do. And then that ran its course. And in sales, there's cold months where you're not selling Red Bull. Now it's coffee. Your numbers are not the same. So eventually, they let me go based on the fact that I couldn't get my numbers. But in the summertime, you're rocking. Springtime, you're rocking. But in the fall, it's like, well, maybe the numbers are changed now, but everybody's drinking hot chocolate and coffee and the whole nine.
And then you're
So
done, and it's time.
yeah,
So when
yeah.
you started serving tables, were you eyeing the back, or were you looking at the bar?
Oh,
Because
oh
here's
yeah.
something that I think I should let the everybody know is that you're basically splitting lanes because you're a private chef. If you guys want to go to his website, it's jchefé.com, JCHEFE.com, and you can see all the stuff that he's into. He does consulting. He does a lot of bartending. He's always creating new drinks. So were you like splitting lanes? What do you like more, working in the kitchen or working behind the bar, or it's just a love for
It's
everything?
it's a love for everything. I tell people all the time I don't have favorites. I just have a passion. And my passion for anything food and beverage is I'm trying to, let that light shine as much as possible. That's why on my Instagram page, when people go there, they're like, "Oh my goodness, like you make some great food, you make some great cocktails." And the reason why I do it, the format that I have is I do for every food that I post a cocktail. So it's like food, cocktail, food, cocktail, food, cocktail. Because I want people to realize that I am split between being a chef and a mixologist, and you rarely see that. I'm not saying the chef can't go back behind the bar and make an old fashioned, but I'm talking about the intricate things to where it comes to dealing with
I'm sh-
mixology. And
I'm showing
it's different.
everybody your Instagram page right now. I'm just scrolling through it for them so they can see it. The
Yeah,
drinks look, the food looks good. I mean,
thank
it when I say your stuff's tight, the pictures and the cocktail pictures look phenomenal. You've got an
you, thank
eye
you,
for it,
thank
and
you.
that's really hard to come by. It's not overnight that
Hmm.
happens. You have
Yeah.
to, and you mentioned it before. Well, let me ask this so everybody can understand. Where does the name come from? What's your
Okay.
real name, and
I'm
then how
excited
did you
for
come
that.
up with this? Yeah, because I know
Okay.
that this is something you strategize this pretty well, and I love this
Oh
because
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
tip.
definitely, definitely.
Because
Yeah, it's even trademarked.
it's even
Um,
trademarked. So like
yeah.
you've said a couple of things, and I think to understand the audience that we have 99.9% of everybody that watches us is probably watching it from a kitchen or has lived in the kitchen or behind the bar. Like I was a bartender before
Yeah.
I was in the kitchen, and I was a really good
Okay, so we have
bartender.
similar
So,
things.
yeah, like
I
I
didn't know that.
started I started behind the bar. I mean, like
Yeah.
when I was older, that was my first gig was bartending. But
Hmm.
I guess the point is that everything that you're saying is going to relate to somebody. Not being able to go to college. Like I had to go to college. That was a big thing for my mom and dad. And I was not an ABC student. I was a CDEFG student, like I barely
Okay.
graduated high school. I went to summer school pretty much every single year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I majored in God knows everything. And then it was,
Mhm.
I mean, we all find these different paths. So like keep telling your story and don't really hold back because what we're trying to do is let people know like on Facebook, a guy, Tony Hansen just tagged it, like when you're telling your story, chef life. I mean, what it is, right? That's us finding our
Yeah.
way. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just little tidbits of how you do it. You're marketing yourself phenomenally. Your Instagram is off the charts. Every picture looks professionally shot, well done, and
Thank you.
it makes. I want everybody to take a moment to think, look at it, because if you're trying to come up and push yourself and sell yourself that you know what you're doing, you've done a good job at that. All the way to the name, all the way to. So let's hear about the name.
Okay, so the name comes from not wanting to be ordinary, right? So you know how you have Chef JoJo, right? And what's crazy about it is that I have a cousin named JoJo, so I can relate. But
Look, I'm gonna tell you right.
they,
I hate to interrupt, but I'm gonna tell you right now. Like when people hear my name, they're either expecting, because remember Casey and
yeah,
JoJo, they're expecting like
yeah,
a 6 foot gospel black singer, right? Or like this little girl. Those are my options. For a little while, it could have been a clown because there was
yeah,
JoJo's Circus, but
yeah.
my whole life, dude, I've been JoJo, and to the point where my
Oh
wife,
goodness.
I mean, no one knows. My wife's like has called me JoJo since she met me. So like you get stuck with it from the South, right? You get these
Yeah,
nicknames and you're
yeah,
stuck. So you, I don't know if it's
yeah,
something that I did as well marketing as you as you did. So sorry to interrupt. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So okay, so my first name is Justin and my last name is Williams, right? Giving my whole government out there.
Get the
But
whole
never in life where I want to be called Chef Justin or Chef J or Chef Williams or Chef Justin Williams. That's a no. Even if I, you know, come out with a book or I'm featured in a film or featured on a show, I never wanted to be Justin J.Chefé Williams. I always wanted a name that stood alone and it embodied a little bit of everything. So the J is technically, um, you know, essence of my first initial, which is Justin.
right.
Chefe is a play off of Hefe and a little bit of French influence for my travels in France. And if anybody knows what chef means, it means basically a manager of the kitchen. And then when you look at Hefe, it means boss. So I was just like, okay, it means the manager of the kitchen, the chef, and then Hefe means boss. It's like boss of the kitchen. So J.Chefé, and it just sounds.
It sounded so good that he froze. So there, you back? You're back.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
You dropped.
Did you
It
hear me?
sounded, and then you were just like you were on it.
Okay.
You were on it. You're back. It was like
Okay. Okay. All right. So where did I leave off at?
right.
Do I-
It sounded so good. You're like chef and Hefe. It's the boss. That was your play.
Yeah. Okay. So boss of the kitchen and manager of the kitchen and Hefe means boss. So it was just like a play off of words, and it's kind of like J boss of the kitchen, so to speak. You know what I mean? But it had a French influence, and I remember I went to France and I heard something, and I forgot this. It was like a lot of A's, like a lot of like chef A, like
Mm-hmm.
little A's on the end with the accent mark, so I could hear certain accents. And I said, oh, I'm gonna name myself. I wrote it down and everything, and I was like, I had got my domain and everything. As soon as I could, I got everything that I needed to get done so that I would have this name. And I thought about a name that would resonate with people. When you think of like Emerald, when you think of you know Anthony Bourdain,
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Ray, Martha Stewart, you think about them, they have like these last names that are attached to it. Now you may say Rachel, and maybe somebody will resonate, they
Right.
understand it. And they say Anthony, the person will be like, oh, who's Anthony? You got to put the Bourdain on there. It's like, oh yeah, Anthony Bourdain. But like when you say J.Chefé, you don't even have to be confused about it. It just is what it is. Like I want people to really hear that name and just know exactly who it is. But if you put in there Chef J, there's a million and one Chef J's.
Oh,
If you
dude,
put in
there's like
Chef Justin's, there's
yeah,
a million and one Chef Justin's.
there's
So
yeah,
never
there's
want to be confused with
I've
those.
never heard the name before, and I think you did a really good job at that piece of trying to figure out how to separate yourself. I mean, you type in Chef JoJo. I mean, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of people called Chef JoJo. In fact, when we went to Maui this last summer, I went and met a Chef JoJo, and he had just opened a restaurant, Fond, and we got to have breakfast there. So it was like two Chef JoJos, right? Like, I don't think you're going to go to any place and go, oh, here's another J.Chefé. I think that's really smart how well you
Yeah.
thought that out because
Yeah.
it's a big industry and everybody's trying to make it to a point where they know they can be remembered. And your strategy is you're a personal chef, you're a mixologist, you're a consultant. You do a little bit of everything and you don't want your name to be forgotten. So like
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. Now what's your like when we tried to schedule this a little bit last week, you had you gotten busy. You gotten booked up with a lot of cocktail
Yeah.
classes. Now, during this crazy time, what have you been selling? I wouldn't say selling. What have you been doing the most of? Have you been teaching a lot of cocktail classes, and are you doing this via remote, or at this point have you started to
Yeah.
open up and have private classes? So what's your business model focused on?
Okay, so my mother has lupus and my stepfather has MS. So meeting with people at this point wouldn't be ideal for me because I want to be able to go visit them from time to time, even though I guess we still supposed to be social distancing, quarantining, but I want to be able to see my family. So meeting with people is it's not ideal. So I had to come up with this idea of what to do. And I'm a chef for a family, very successful family, and it's great, right? Um, I bartend at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I like to think that I'm one of the best, if not the best bartender there. Um, and I do the same thing at the Georgia World Congress Center. There's a lot of people at these places. I'm one of the few that, or maybe the only one that's sitting around there flipping bottles and doing all kind of tricks with bottles because I do flair.
Where
I
are
do
you? Oh, nice.
bartending.
Where are you in the? Because when I was there last time, we did a tour of Georgia. That is an amazing. It's the first time. So when I toured Georgia, like Mercedes Benz, it's the first time in a long time where I was absolutely phenomenally jealous of my buddy John Nicely. So like when he's the regional chef, he oversees that property for Levy, and
Oh, okay, yeah.
so I used to be the company I used to work for, right? And
Okay.
when I walked, I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is built for all the turns and curves. It's amazing. It's brand
Okay.
new. It had all
Yeah.
the bells and whistles. I thought it's a
Yes.
beautiful place. You
It
work
is.
there. Which bar are you in?
So I am at the Luna Zoo bar.
Okay.
It's actually the Luna Zoo cart. So it's a sponsored cart. It sits directly in front. Well, not directly, but if you know where the Falcon statue is, which is the biggest bird statue in I think the United States or the world,
Yeah.
that they had built in like Korea, and brought it, and they had it designed there, and it's so big they had to break it into two pieces. But anyway, and then assemble it here in the United States. It was crazy, but basically, if you look at the big Falcon statue and you just turn around, I'm at the bar that's closer to the Mercedes-Benz vehicles. So
Okay.
that's usually where I am. And yeah, I've been working there for a while now. I've worked the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you did.
By far, that was the highest paying gig that I've ever had bartending. I made $1,500, and I had to be there all day. But to make $1,500 bartending, I'm sure anybody that's listening that's ever bartended, that's a lot of money to make. Just for one day. A few $100s. I think the most I ever made other than that was like $500 or $600, not ever $1,500.
No,
But that was
Super
the big
Bowl.
Super Bowl. Tom Brady getting six. It was big.
No, it's a beautiful, and I'm sure Atlanta was just crazy lit for the whole
It
like
was.
that. I remember looking at all the
We had to get
videos.
there like 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
I sent my buddy a text. I was like, man, you got this. Like, nicely is one of the and most influential. Like, I have several chefs that have helped me through my life and my career, and he's one of the pivotal. In fact, it's really strange is because I was a small restaurant guy, and I didn't know if I wanted to go corporate, and John John spent like an hour and 25 minutes on the phone with me for an interview about because the guy I was mentioning earlier in the call had moved up to Atlanta. And, he's a musician, he's a chef, he's got all sorts of stuff going on. He was working at Phillips Arena, and I was wanting to get out of South Florida, and I called him and I said, hey, we want to move, and we were thinking about Atlanta. And I said, do you know anybody that's looking? And so I sent my resume, and then John Nicely, he called me because of the resume, and we talked. And I mean, I owe so much to so many people. Most of it's to my wife Gina, because she really pushes me to do more than ever, and I love it because she
There we go,
supports
Gina.
me. Yeah, Gina definitely is. I owe her
It's nothing
everything.
like the woman that supports you. I
And
haven't found that yet,
oh, I'm gonna tell you, like when you find it, hold
but
on,
I'm sure to
like
come.
yeah, you'll find it. And
Yeah,
John,
yeah,
like I spoke to him for so long about, like, I didn't want to sell out to a point, like, and he put it in a way, he was very, not just, he just answered the questions. And like sometimes that's what we need. We just need somebody to kind of help us vet through what that next phase is. And dude, it's the best
yes.
job I ever had. And this is when he was at Phillips, and he couldn't hire
Okay.
me because of the strike. So I ended up going down to
Yes.
Miami, and then I ended up working at American Airlines Arena uh,
Okay.
when Shaq got signed. So I did 2
Okay.
seasons down there, and then I ended up leaving. So like
Yes.
the S&E stuff, like doing that's where I've found my passion. But like I love that property you work at. Like I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot more stories that I'll totally derail you. But like if you could
Yeah.
pinpoint a couple of people in your career that have made a difference for you, who would that be?
Well, Rico, Chef Rico Cunnington, he owns two restaurants out here. It's called Rico's World Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is called the Apothecary. One is, both of them are great. But he was the first person to ever give me a restaurant job. He gave me the restaurant job, and the same day I had the interview, and he gave it to me within like 15 minutes of talking to me. He was just like, he asked me a question. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm
Okay,
listening to
okay.
you.
I don't know if it was okay.
No, like I
He asked
just
me a
went still
question.
on you, didn't I?
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. He asked me a question, and he basically said to me, "What makes you think that you can cut it out, and you can cut it in the restaurant business?" And I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm a kid from Jersey that knows, I've been to a lot of restaurants. I know what it takes to, provide good service, and I can hustle." And I said, my grandfather was a chef, and my grandmother was a damn good cook. And I said, I'm sure I would make them proud by starting, keyword starting, um, in your restaurant as a server. And so when I said that, he was just like, "You got the job," and it was like a great thing. And
That's awesome.
and then eventually, after being there and seeing my curiosity, and also having his own plan to open up a restaurant, he I was the only server that he bought from that restaurant to where he was working, and I basically worked with him, his mother, his wife, and it was me. It was just four of us, and then it branched off into more people, but it was four of us for a while. So I
Wow,
got to
dude.
see, I got to clean toilets, run the register, serve tables, prep food, wash dishes, help him cook, get taught by him, every cater, every aspect of the restaurant business. He basically showed me outside of outside other than bartending that I had to find myself. Even though he knew how to do it, he just didn't have a bar in his restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to that curiosity caused me to want to seek that elsewhere. But I have to give him number one. I have to give him that because he gave me that start in the restaurant business, and he was my mentor,
Dude, that's
and I
awesome.
was his apprentice.
Well,
So
it
I
sounds
give
like you
him
were a good person to teach, because you just named off a lot of things people won't do, like clean toilets and all that stuff. And you there when you're in that position and there's 5 of you running this
yeah,
restaurant, you do a little
yeah.
bit of everything, and you're not above any of it. Um,
It was a piece of humble pie. I mean, to me. I do. Look, I was one time a groundskeeper, picking up dog poop and jumping in dumpsters and pressure washing breezeways. Jumping in dumpsters to press them down and everything.
oh yeah.
Like, one of the things my mother always taught me is you got to crawl before you can walk. There's always a beginning, and there is an end, but you want to make sure that that beginning is the most humblest beginning that you have. And the reason why that is because when you make it to that point where you want to make it to, which I haven't made it to yet, but you even still having not made it to it, I always reflect on those cleaning the toilet. That's something honestly that my mother had me doing when I was 5, 6 years old. So like when he said clean the toilet, he might have looked at it like it was such a hard thing, but for me it wasn't until like this one day. We'll talk about that another time. But he took the lead and cleaned the bathroom, and it was nice seeing him do it as a chef, and then scrubbing his hands for like 20 minutes afterwards. But yeah, that's one person. The other person I would say would be my uncle. My uncle is a man that works with his hands. He's one of the most intelligent guys that I know. He is like the number one guy in my life. I talk to him every single day that I live.
Now,
Um,
is this
so
this is the uncle about the White Castle uncle? This is
Yeah, that's the uncle.
okay. I'm
Yeah,
just trying to
yeah.
I'm looping it all together. So
Yeah, his name is James Leonard, and
James Leonard.
and yeah, he's my mother's brother, and yeah, I love my uncle to death, even so much that I'm thinking about moving to Florida so I can be closer to him because it just when you have somebody who's a positive role model in your life that has basically been with you, um, especially in my adulthood most important. He just been there for me, and he has been the person who's been like my brother, my father, my best friend. And I can call my uncle and really tell him about anything. It's not nothing that he would really be surprised about because he's 54 years old. I mean, he's seen a lot, and even though he's never worked in the restaurant business, he's been around my grandmother, who was a great cook. My grandfather was an awesome chef. His father, that was a jack of all trades, and also had his own food truck. So I'm always able to get gems from my uncle, and he always is one of those people that keeps me grounded. You
Well,
know,
if you do go to Orlando, let us know. I know I have some good friends there. Um,
I will, I
and
will.
besides Orlando being the hottest place in the universe, um,
Woo.
that's But I mean, I spent a lot of summers in Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans and Tallahassee. So, but I
Yeah,
found Orlando to be just unforgivingly hot. Um,
yes.
so you're in this point. You like, man. There sounds like you've just got so much. You said that your mom's got lupus or MS. Your dad has lupus. Like, so you're really trying to just make it happen. You're in Atlanta. Is she still up in Jersey?
No, she actually, her and my pop, my stepfather, they moved a little bit after I graduated. We moved to Georgia, so yeah, they're here in Georgia,
Okay.
and so they're not far, and yeah, so a lot of my family, honestly, I have family in Jersey, but it's weird. I don't know if anybody who's watching has had this situation happen before, but you ever I'll say this to the people who are listening. You ever had like a time when you moved to a different state and then your family followed? Like I've had a lot of family follow to a different, to the same state. And when I look back at it, I'm like, you know, I guess people it is true when people want to live in a different area, a better area, they want to have a different lifestyle, they move. And if your family's there, it just gives an extra, so I have a lot of family here from Jersey and New York
Well, that's good because that
and
doesn't
all over the
put
place.
you like. Because I think family. When I my hand, my sister-in-law who moved back into the country, but she lives up in the Bay Area. She lives outside San Francisco, and we live in South Orange County, so it's a good
Okay.
7 hour trip. But I mean, it's still she's in the same country. It was a big deal for us when we all kind of like ended up on the
Yeah.
West Coast because we're the only crew that's out here. And we've
Yeah.
been East Coast people our whole life, and Southeast Coast.
Yeah.
Georgia, Louisville, Florida, South Florida. I mean, New Orleans and Mobile. Like that's where everything was happening for a while. And when you need family, I love the story about your uncle and you guys being so close because without family, I I don't think there's my big goal in my life was to open a restaurant and run it with family, and because I just wanted to be with my family as much as possible. I didn't know that our business that I love so much can keep you away from the family quite a bit as well.
Yes.
Now, from here, you might go to Orlando. You might do this. Give me a little bit of what you're working on for the future, next 4 or 5 years, so people can kind of see your aspirations.
So I'm trying to be, or gonna be, let's say that, I'm gonna be the next best culinary journalist, that of like Anthony Bourdain and Andrew Zimmern.
Okay.
I say gonna be because it's not a cocky thing. I'm like the most humble guy that anybody would ever meet. I say gonna be because if you speak things into existence, they will happen. They will always stay on the forefront of your brain, and you'll
I
do everything you can to get there. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
I say I'm gonna be because I'm speaking those things into existence. And, soon people will know who I am and be able to appreciate who I am for all of um, my, I guess, art. I remember I saw this one particular chef and he said, food is not art. And I beg to differ. And I beg to differ that cocktails are not art. And I hope that people can see that. Also, can see my personality. That's one of the things that I've been working on recently. It's because with me being a culinary artist and a cocktail styler, it's one of those things that I'm always looking to create. I had this thing in my brain that I'm gonna create every day that I live. That way, eventually, people will recognize the beauty of what I do. And so I got so caught up into the process of creating, taking pictures of my food and my cocktails, and staying all into that because I'm writing a cookbook and a cocktail book.
I heard you
All things,
mention that when you were talking to Jet. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
really said that. Well, I'm working on this book.
yeah.
How's that going for you?
Oh, it's good. I mean, the pandemic definitely helped it, because I'm home.
Yeah, it definitely
you
sped
know,
that process up.
yeah, yeah. It's been a 3 year process, and I was talking to Jet, and he was like, yeah, it's a process, and he was like, I asked him what his advice was, and he was like, you don't really get paid much for coming out with cookbooks. That's not a thing where you're gonna get paid. And he said you're gonna have to do it from the heart. Now I'm gonna do it from the heart, but in my mind, I want to set a mark that you can be this kid that has these dreams, and you can have these high dreams, and maybe it didn't happen for other people. Maybe a lot of people didn't sell cookbooks and cocktail books, but I think I'm different. I think that I will be able to do that, and I think I will get this show where I travel the world and I get people in touch with culinary and culture, and I think that that's something that um, my face will be different from what they normally see on TV. My personality would be different. The banter, the conversation would be different than what they normally see. And so that's all things lead to me having my own show to affect change, to have people in their mindsets to realize that there's a whole lot of culture out here that you're not accustomed to seeing or not accustomed to knowing everything. And even if you do know, Middle Eastern culture, you may not know anything much about African culture. You may not know much
True.
about French culture.
So
And
true.
I'm here to be able to um, give you that perspective, but actually give you the perspective, show you what it is, not for me just to go over there and have a conversation with them, but for me to put my cooking chops to the test. So it's like, if they're making
Nice.
something, uh, look, I'm putting on the apron now, making it with them. They're teaching me along the way. Because I truly believe that we're never masters of anything, but we are, uh,
Not in this industry. I can tell
yeah,
you that right
the
now.
one
There's
thing we,
always something, right?
yeah, yeah, the one thing we can master or try to master is being a student of the game. And when I look at someone like, for instance, Kobe Bryant, that played his heart out and was always a student of the game, it's funny how like a person can have a passion or a craft, and they can influence you, and your passion and craft is totally different. And so, but it's the dream and the person putting in the work, willing to put in the work in order to get to that dream, that is the ultimate dream. And I think if we're willing to put in the work, we'll get to that dream. I mean, in this situation, the pandemic happened. I'm not cooking for the family I cook for. They're quarantining. They have pre-existing conditions. They can't have anybody, and I don't take it personally. It was a high paying, it was a, well, I can say high paying, a really good paying job that just over. Congress Center, there's no conventions right now,
Oh,
no trade
yeah.
shows.
I know.
That's over.
I know.
Um, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta United. I love Atlanta United. I mean, that's Atlanta United is like the biggest ticket in Atlanta. Bigger than the Falcons, bigger than
Yeah,
the
that's sold
Hawks,
out.
bigger than the
Sold
Braves.
out
It's,
every
it's
game.
crazy, and I love seeing those people. I have my regulars, got hundreds of them, and I don't get to see them anymore.
No.
So I had to come up with a game plan on how to succeed. I had already had a game plan to move past all three of those jobs to get to where I said that I'm trying to get to. But then everything's over, right? So I had to figure it out. So what I do is, with the skill set that I've been blessed to have, I've used that to basically make people happy. So I host classes via Zoom, cooking and cocktail classes, and I do it for communities that are looking for it, apartment communities and people online that are looking for that. There's always a way that you can succeed. It may not be the most highest paid job, but it's mine. and I created it, and it can be a
Oh,
great business
wow. I
later
love
on.
what you just said. It might not be the most highest paying job, but it's mine. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, you like I can see the drive. It's funny that you're like, I want my own show. I want to travel. That used to be my speech in a lot of my classes. Like when they're like, "What are you gonna do?" I wanted it all. Like I wanted to be that next name, and I
Hmm.
love that. That's where you want to go, and don't let anyone tell you any different about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about this industry is like no matter what, and especially when you combine them, you want to put a show on it, you want to put a book in it, and you want to tie it together with cooking. You can get your teeth kicked in a lot going down that road, and it doesn't sound like that really is going to phase you because you keep speaking it into an existence, and it will be. I love that message. You've got some really strong, resilient practices, and I think that I hope that's what the everybody comes away with. Now, as we kind of bring it all together, we have
Okay.
people watching it, and we have a lot of young cooks and people that are in the industry. What would you pass on, I mean, to someone that's coming up, I mean, just starting out? Like I had somebody send me a message, and they're in
Mhm.
Australia, and this is a couple of days ago, and they're like, "Oh, I love the shift drinks, thanks for posting them." And I was like, "Well, hey, if there's anything," he's like starting his first year internship.
Okay.
If you're talking to somebody the first year, and we'll wrap it up on this one, you get to tie all of your wisdom into this question. What would you tell
Okay.
somebody that's starting out, that wants to get into this career, and they want to be successful? What's your words of advice?
I would say there's three things. Don't get into your own way. You know, um,
Okay, what do you mean by that?
so we all have a way about going about things, and so if they don't go in the way that direction that you're going into, you can get into your own way. Meaning, let's say this is my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being taught how to do something new with my body that I normally don't do, and I don't appreciate it. That's my mind getting into my own way. So I'm stopping myself from progressing just from my mind telling me I don't do that. That's not what I do. But but you
Nice,
but when you're trying to
nice.
learn as an intern or as a pupil, it's not about what you did because you wouldn't be trying to learn. It's about what you're gonna do. So if you're not willing to do things that outside of the box, or things that are new to you, then you'll never make it because anything that you do in life is going to be new to you. If it came easy, then you wouldn't appreciate it, right? So I would say that. And from another perspective is never get caught up in the fact that you're either trying to be a chef or a mixologist or a line cook. Just enjoy it. Don't have a whole bunch of conversation about it where
Mm-hmm.
you're always being full of yourself and you're always saying, I'm gonna do this. It's kind of like when people when early 2000s music started coming around and people really just started, especially in Atlanta. Everybody was a rapper, and with something that I always took pride in was you don't always have to tell someone what you do for a living. I know it sounds crazy. Sometimes the best things for you to do is, how they say, my mother always says, don't be the you don't have to be the lead singer. Sometimes you can be the background singer. Well, I take it a step further. Sometimes you can be the backup, the hummer behind the background singer. You can be as, incognito as possible. The less talking that you do about whatever that you're trying to do sometimes to others, the more time you have to actually put into your craft. And what I learned
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
I looked at all the people who were talking about it. They came out of culinary school, or they were interning, or they had an apprenticeship, and they had certain things. They was always talking about it. Then I look at them years later, they're like working they're working for Kimberly Clark or Home Depot, and they're doing jobs that's not their passion. Some of them aren't cooking at all. And so it's important to have that silence to yourself so you can really figure out what resonates with you. Because in that period of time, you're an intern, you're really trying to figure it out. You're trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out if you're going to be work underneath a chef your whole life. Because there's plenty of chefs that do. You got some that you're trying to figure out what industry you're going to be in a hotel, you're going to be on a cruise ship, you're going to be in somebody's restaurant, you're going to maybe most of the time, and this is most of the time, that most people who go to culinary school never think about opening their own business. They always think about working for someone else. So I think when you're having that quietness to yourself,
You really get
and
to understand yourself.
you're really just talking to yourself.
Yeah.
If you talk to yourself as much as you maybe talk to others about your dream, you will then live the dream. The more you talk about it, it doesn't always mean it's going to go into existence.
Yeah,
Now
you
I
got to
talk
be
about it.
about it. You got to be about it. And
Yeah,
I think that's the toughest thing because so many people are their own hype man, but they're not their own boss. They're too busy. They're too busy selling the sizzle and not cooking the steak. And it's tough. I mean, dude, that's phenomenal. That's really good. Get out of your own way and often push yourself and be quiet about it.
and the last thing I would say is take accountability for your actions. We're in a world right now where there's a lot of stuff happening, and people never take accountability for their actions. One of the most humbling things that you can do in life, and it really shows humility, is when you can really take account your actions.
Wow.
A lot of things that we do in life are based on our own actions. It's not always based by someone else. And so the more you can take accountability for your own actions, you hold yourself at a higher standard. If you hold yourself at a higher standard in life, you will achieve the things that you're looking for. I mean, give you a perfect example. I mean, this is a small thing, but I had two things. I had a cocktail and a plate that I had did. And, at the time I took a picture, I posted online. People love it, right? Nobody ever said this doesn't look right. But for me, I looked at it and I looked at it, some months later, and I said, I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
That's me taking accountability for my own actions. I knew the day that I took that picture of that drink that I had the wrong cut of dragon fruit. I knew I needed a smaller piece of dragon fruit, but I still did it anyway. And the picture just didn't resonate with me. It didn't make me feel happy. The reason why my pictures make me feel, or I'm really serious about my pictures, because each picture that I use I take has the potential of being in my cookbook and cocktail book. So that means that when you are creating something, don't just create it and take a picture. Look at it as a stepping stone to get you where you need to get, or and to put you in the place you need to put it.
Yes.
Because you can't really, when you go back and if you're always satisfied with everything that you've done,
then you're not doing the right stuff.
You're not doing the right thing. And, I mean, don't get me wrong. I take a lot of great pictures and I make a lot of great. At least I feel this way. You have to have some confidence with it now.
Yeah, you do. But like at some point here, like there's a picture, and I'll try to find it. I'll send it to you. And the failures, because I did a shift drink on failures, and allowing this picture is either taking your failures and putting them on your shoulders and trying to carry them, or laying those failures down in front of you and building steps to get you to that next level. And you have to, there's another, I read and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I just said I read, but I really listen. I peruse the books and try to read, but every time I do, I fall asleep sometimes. But what you just described, that last one, is the accountability of your own actions. And it's something that I try to practice and I talk to my team about. It's called extreme ownership. It's always the leader's fault, no matter what. If you're the leader, you're in charge. And if you're trying to get to somewhere and you didn't set up enough plans, and you're going to fail. Sometimes your best isn't good enough, and you need to look at that and go, okay, how can I get better? And you can't always expect that there's someone that eventually you're going to lose. You're going to have to be set back, because otherwise you're not growing. If it's not painful, if it's not knocking you down a little bit, like tonight, we grew tonight, right? We grew tonight. Yeah. Like tonight, we both tried to figure out how to get the Zoom to work, how to get all the camera angles to work. It was something that was a challenge, and now we know next time to do it better. I think those three strong points that you just brought together are, if people go back and listen to that and really focus on what you said, man, that is some extremely profound stuff. And it said many a times, and I've heard it different ways, at practicing extreme ownership and being accountable for your own actions, because it really boils down, because the only thing you can control in this world is what? Your actions. Your life is how you handle the things that happen to you. Man,
Yes.
dude, you're definitely I enjoyed the conversation so much tonight. We'll have to do it again. We'll have to ask you some more questions as we do this. Maybe we'll get back on and do some more. I really appreciate your time tonight, man. We will do whatever we need to do to support you in this journey. You embody everything that we stand for at ECO. We want success. We want people to challenge themselves, and we want this industry to be better than it was yesterday. That's what we try to do. So, Chef, I really appreciate your time tonight. Hopefully, again, we'll do this again soon. So, dude, thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say one thing before we
Absolutely, go.
So I forgot to put what else I'm doing now. So
go ahead.
Similarly, like you're doing a podcast where you're getting people in touch with chefs, and that's kind of how we met, right? I was trying to get people. My mindset is, I admire so many other chefs, and if I'm going to put myself in this place that I'm trying to be in, what is the best course of action? So what's during this pandemic, I'm able to reach out to chefs, and they're actually agreeing to do interviews with me. But I will say this for the people who are watching. My page is a reflection of me and my art and my mindset. If I was just a regular guy and I just had some plates that I just threw on there and I reached out to these chefs to try to have an interview, they wouldn't pay attention to me at all. My grandmother used to always say, proof is in the pudding and the eating. And that means that, in order for a person to really get in touch with who you are, they got to taste your food. In this case, everybody can't taste my food, right? But they can certainly see it. They can certainly see my consistency. They can see the dates that I posted it. They can see how long I've been, on. And long story short, I think that they look at those things when they say yes to me. And that means that you're willing to put in the work. So interviewing these chefs, they put in the work. It's my job now to show the work and the backstory of them putting that in. So, yeah.
Now, scrolling through your Instagram, I'm scrolling through your page. I think it's really good. I think that you have done some amazing work. The stuff just looks good. And think about it, guys. Everybody that's listening to this should know that your social profile speaks volumes of who you are. And Chef, you've done a great job of making sure that you guys look like you look the best that you can look with every picture. And that's what I said on our first conversation. Like we were talking, I said, dude, the website looks phenomenal. You've done a good job with that. Your Instagram, your social media stuff, it looks great. And that's hard because it's coming from a guy that has tried to build a website. I mean, I've got a chef that is on our Facebook page, like he's on Facebook, Bob. He remembers probably the day that I started talking about ECO and like trying to create a website, trying to make t-shirts, trying to put something out there that hadn't really been done at the time. We're talking 2010, man. And like, it's still something that I'm pushing. It's still something that I believe in. It's still something that challenges me every day. It's not that I'm the best or the number one. It's just that I'm the best that I can be. I'm my number one, right? Yeah. And I love it. You got 21,000 followers on Instagram. You got 675 great looking posts. You got a strong website and you've got a strong work ethic. So I think this is just the beginning. I think that in a couple of months, I'm going to be like, hey, you want to do another show? And you're going to be like, I'm booked up. I'm booked up. I'm booked up. So I would love that. I would love for you just to remember this. Just remember the small people when you blow up.
No. I tell you. I really, before we go, because I know you on a time limit, but I truly appreciate you interviewing me. I've been doing so many interviews with other people. Honestly, this will be the first interview somebody has done with me. So it's one of those things that I'm never going to forget. And if what you say is going to happen happens, Trust me, I will never forget you. I will do your show every chance that I can get.
Oh, dude,
So
that's awesome.
yeah,
You just let us
we'll
know how
start
we in the ECO family can support you getting to where
yeah,
you need to be because like our new mantra is if we don't take care of each other, no one else will. So, Chef, thank you
that's
for
true.
your time. I look, we'll have another
And I
one
know I
because
look like
there's
a butler right now.
yeah, I look like a butler. That's
Yeah,
you probably were just
look,
doing a
look.
cocktail class today.
No, no, you know what happened was I was supposed to interview Chef Inet Amoni
Okay.
uh, and today, and so she was in upstate New York, and it was a big storm. And so what I like to do is whenever I interview, I like to dress nice regardless of the interview. But because I like her so much, I was like, oh, I'm going to dress up nice for Chef Inet, and so I did, and I said, well, since I'm going to do an interview with you, I'm going to keep these clothes on and do it with you and look as fresh as I can. So
Dude, now you're
yeah.
making me conscious because I'm just wearing our pocket tee with the skills hood, like flat bill. And
No, no, that's the brand, man. That's the brand. You got to
yes, it
brand
is.
it.
It is definitely the brand, dude. Listen, and I we'll have we will do this again. I loved our conversation.
Hey, anytime
Everybody
you.
out there, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
This was one of my favorite episodes of Leave It On the Line, and this remote version where typically we would sit right across from table each other, we'd have drinks, and we'd talk about like the struggles. This is just the beginning of J.Chefé's story. I promise you, I think we're going to see a lot more from him. So everybody. Follow him on Instagram. Go to his website. That's jchefé.com. And he has all of his social tags. So, Chef, listen, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. And until then, cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Chef.